5 a.m. In North Seattle, the city still wrapped in cold mist when federal teams moved in on a hidden facility suspected of major fraud operations. Sealed files, warning signals, and a carefully engineered network began to unravel layer by layer, collapsing every assumption investigators once held. On that bleak morning, the two-story home belonging to Dr. Adrian Mallory, once a symbol of medical integrity, suddenly became the center of an unfolding investigation. The interior appeared tidy and respectable, the kind of home owned by a successful family, yet the real anomaly waited below the dim basement stairs. Family photos, diplomas, and glowing commendations lined the walls as if telling a story of lifelong service. But once agents opened the door leading downstairs, a hidden system emerged. Storage devices, encrypted files, and sealed crates unrelated to hospital inventory, arranged in a way that hinted at years of concealed activity. The room that froze investigators was a basement space converted into a clandestine medical lab, complete with surgical lighting and precisely arranged tools. A man sworn to protect public health had built a covert channel for manipulating sensitive medical data, placing the entire city at potential risk. If you believe truth deserves daylight, comment "expose." If you take advantage of this community, you will be held accountable. The declaration echoed as agents uncovered the widening gap between Mallory's public image and his hidden operations. His celebrated medical career was merely the surface, concealing a system running quietly beneath the radar for years. Financial records revealed a web of shell companies, no employees, no contracts, yet managing enormous transactions across multiple states and countries. Funds were disguised through charitable grants, medical scholarships, and aid programs, creating a flawless cover that masked the true direction of the money. Mallory's hospital position granted him access to procedures almost impossible for outsiders to reach. Encrypted emails referenced special transfers, priority routing, and recipient checks, phrases that sounded clinical but were actually instructions for moving sensitive information out of official oversight. Inside a folder labeled Operations, investigators found movement schedules for individuals marked as protected subjects, along with medical notes and handling guidelines. Beside them lay logs suggesting shipments of compromised data routed through coastal ports before sunrise. As each record was cross-checked, agents realized Mallory wasn't assisting an external network, he was the hub. Using professional authority, he exploited oversight gaps to run a full-scale system that had quietly operated for years, sheltered by his medical expertise. And the next transfer was already scheduled before dawn. If you believe authority should not hide behind a white coat, tap like so, the story reaches more people. By 3:40 a.m., federal commanders understood time had run out. A group inside Everett's port awaited rescue. Inside the command center, tension was so sharp it felt metallic. Heat scans, port maps, and shipment logs converged on one point. The site's guards were preparing a rapid move. The situation escalated to high-risk status, requiring multiple federal teams to merge into a single strike element. No speeches, no noise, only silent nods acknowledging the precision required. As the convoy neared the port, agents saw several watchers positioned at elevated points, observing the road. Clearly, they were expecting something, but not an intervention from the federal government. The opening move lit up the waterfront like lightning. Specialized teams breached the first access point, creating a path inside the storage compound. Immediately, sensors detected movement deeper within, signaling the complexity of what lay ahead. Inside, the warehouse floor resembled a maze, with stacked equipment creating numerous blind spots. On overhead walkways, several individuals attempted to obstruct the approach, forcing agents to rely on elevated vantage points to secure a safe entry route. The tight layout made the operation more tense as industrial racks and machinery blocked direct paths. Rapid response units moved carefully through narrow corridors, wary of unexpected triggers. A signal jamming device was identified, requiring the tech team to neutralize it before it disrupted the operation. A distraction device was deployed to gain room for maneuvering. On the southwest side, immigration enforcement teams intercepted a group attempting to move protected individuals toward a refrigerated truck. When one person acted aggressively, the K-9 unit intervened quickly, stabilizing the situation. Outside, tension peaked as 3 large vehicles started up at once, accelerating toward the perimeter in an attempt to break free. The first truck smashed through a chain-link gate. Tactical units reacted immediately, blocking its path to prevent broader danger to the surrounding area. The vehicle skidded sideways, slamming into a container hard enough to shake the entire row. Above, a helicopter spotlight lit up the scene, revealing abandoned pathways, scattered equipment, and the fading outline of a collapsing operation. Inside, agents approached the container identified in Mallory's encrypted files. The reinforced lock finally gave way, revealing 9 people huddled together, shaken, freezing, but alive. Outside, the chaos began to dissipate. The last individual involved surrendered quietly as the perimeter closed, marking a turning point in the entire mission. As first light rose over Everett's port, the scene took shape through the morning haze. Documents, devices, and abandoned crates reflected the scale of the operation. Amid it all, agents stood exhausted yet resolute, aware the mission they'd just completed was among the most demanding they had ever faced. Once the site stabilized, analysts returned to the evidence taken from Mallory's hidden facility. Every folder, hard drive, and encrypted message revealed deeper layers, indicating an operation not limited to a handful of people but woven into multiple levels of existing systems. Under fluorescent lights in the evidence room, a pattern emerged. A structure of influence built over years, disguised as community programs, medical partnerships, and advisory roles. When the financial trail was retraced, the hidden support system became impossible to ignore. Mallory had not acted alone. He cultivated a protective network fueled by incentives, grants, and professional favor. Several public officials appeared throughout the correspondence, with payments that seemed ordinary yet suspiciously aligned with each movement of shipments and data transfers. Some received consulting fees, others expedited inspections, and port staff approved fast-track containers. The pattern was unmistakable. Approvals given at just the right times, signatures without scrutiny, and a series of modest transactions repeated consistently across 5 years. Together, those small transactions accumulated into an astonishing sum, routed through foundations and medical support programs. None of them were accidental. They were calculated decisions made by individuals who understood the consequences of their silence. The announcement shook Seattle. Mallory had delivered speeches, won community awards, and represented public health leadership. Yet behind that polished image was someone who redirected resources and manipulated trust in programs meant to benefit the public. Inside city offices, emergency meetings erupted. Departments demanded audits, hospitals launched internal reviews, and port managers faced questions they had never imagined. Longtime residents remained stunned, not just by the scandal itself, but by what it revealed about the fragility of institutional trust. If a respected medical director could distort responsibility so profoundly, who else had overlooked the warning signs? Every signature, approval, and cleared shipment raised difficult questions about how minor oversights accumulated into something much larger. The hardest truth was that the danger hadn't come from outside the city. It had grown quietly within institutions meant to protect it. What began as a pre-dawn raid became one of Washington State's most expansive investigations, reaching into sectors previously considered secure. Federal coordination rooms from Tacoma to Washington, D.C. were no longer filled with theories. They now held a complete blueprint of a system built under the guise of medicine and public service. And every connection pointed back to Adrian Mallory's calculated plan. The inventory from Everett's port stunned even seasoned investigators. Hundreds of electronic devices awaiting transport, unprocessed documents, and specialized medical kits meant only for legitimate institutions. But the most important achievement was the safe recovery of the 9 individuals transported immediately for urgent care. Meanwhile, federal prosecutors finalized a sweeping indictment list. Coordinators, facilitators, and individuals who used their positions to bypass oversight were all named, supported by documentation, signatures, encrypted logs, and time-stamped records that matched with startling precision. Mallory himself faced a broad set of charges related to fraud, misuse of authority, data manipulation, and regulatory violations. His hearing drew a crowd so large, federal marshals had to secure the courthouse steps. People who'd once applauded his speeches now watched in disbelief. hospitals initiated emergency audits, pulling every contract tied to Mallory. Port authorities temporarily suspended several operations for risk assessment. Police departments launched internal reviews to ensure no remaining links had been overlooked. At the state capitol, lawmakers called for hearings to address oversight gaps that allowed Mallory to build influence behind the mask of community care. For longtime Seattle residents, the scandal triggered a deeper reflection on how trust can erode when oversight becomes complacent. The pain wasn't only in the wrongdoing, it came from realizing warning signs had been missed. Documents showed moments where intervention was possible but brushed aside, raising concerns about how many other issues had slipped unnoticed. Yet, amid the disappointment, one truth stood firm: the system did not fully collapse. When the threat emerged, agents mobilized, analysts traced every lead, and frontline teams protected people they had never met. Justice moved forward slow, strained, but unbroken. Mallory's courtroom now sits empty chairs aligned, flags upright, bench polished, yet the silence carries weight. It reminds the city that justice sometimes must confront those entrusted with upholding it. Seattle must now face the reality that risk can originate inside familiar walls. This case was never just about a secret room or a warehouse operation. It revealed what happens when authority is misused and trust is leveraged carelessly. Transparency and accountability are not optional. They're safeguards against vulnerabilities lurking in routine processes. Sometimes danger does not hide in darkness. It stands in plain sight, dressed professionally, signing documents that inspire confidence. But once exposed, it can no longer conceal itself, and accountability must follow without exception. The case teaches a sobering lesson. Titles do not guarantee integrity. Community safety depends on those willing to question, verify, and review what others take for granted. When light reaches hidden corners, the ordinary transforms into something seen clearly for the first time. But equally, this story proves that when people within the system stand firm, they can turn the tide. Agents, analysts, and technical teams work together to protect those most vulnerable. Justice may move slowly, but it does not stand still. If you believe accountability must apply to everyone, regardless of position or prestige, share and comment so this story reaches farther. Because ultimately, what holds a community together isn't titles or reputation, but transparency and the willingness to protect one another.